Welcome back to the conversation, the DMGB conversation, which stands for Doesn't Matter, Get Better. It's the philosophy that I lived by in my coaching career that we continue to live by today, that everybody who comes into this conversation brings with them. And I am very excited to introduce my friend Reggie Walker to the conversation. He is a Kansas State alum. He's a former NFL player for the Arizona Cardinals, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos, went from an undrafted free agent to becoming a captain of a football team, battled mental illness and all kinds of adversity in his life to now be a mentor, teacher, coach, and somebody that I like to call a colleague and a friend. So, Reggie, welcome to the conversation.
Oh, thanks for the intro. That was a great one. And,
yeah, but no, man. So I think that the audience will definitely understand where I'm coming from with that. But I'm excited, man. So you come from the great state of Missouri, right? Got the opportunity to play college football at Kansas State and then jumped into an NFL career. Talk to us about what it was like earning your way in that world, coming up in the Midwest, and how you got started.
Okay, so I came up in the Midwest, but my parents are in the military, so I'm more of a military brat. And even though I kind of tell people I'm from California, I lived longer in Missouri than I did in California. But I felt like I'm more of a person of the country of America. But coming up, it was difficult for a lot of reasons, but also I planned for it in a lot of ways because it was difficult because I was dealing when you go through mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, it leaves an effect on you. And when in my case, I funneled it all into sports, which really did save me. Um, but living the way that I did, dealing with those issues, you have to be a real calculated person. And we have to be a calculated person to go through that environment anyway. But I had to be a calculated and strategic person because I, with these effects, I had to really understand my faults.
Sure.
For first and foremost, I had to understand what I was bringing to the table, how I fit into the big picture, and really making a strategic plan towards my goals. And it was very difficult, but having a plan and being calculated how I was, it really saved me in a lot of ways. And that's literally what I teach people to this day.
Talk to us a little bit about what it was like to grow up, I guess, in I call it a masculine environment, right? Like the military and what you and I know as the football world are, you got to be a man's man. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be physical, you got to get after it, you got to be the tough guy and not show emotion and all of that. And to be struggling with mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse as a young man, as a developing human being. Forget about being boy, girl, whatever. You're in a developmental stage of your mind and you're dealing with that. What was it like being in that environment and having to deal with all this mentally?
Whew. Being in that environment, it did a lot of damage to me, but it also helped me in a lot of ways. So just like anything else, it has positives and its negatives. One of the positives, because I like to leave with positive stuff. The one of the positives was understanding structure. I needed to understand, hey man, you're not going to get from point A to Z just by dreaming. Like, you're going to need to put in work, you're going to need to put in time, you're going to need to have a plan. So it definitely did teach me that. But how it hurt me was being in an athletic environment, especially once you get past high school. You get introduced to the business or political side of ball. And with my understanding of that, it wasn't the most conducive environment to open up about your emotions or to really be yourself. And I needed to be myself and I needed to understand my emotions. So it really set me back a while until I understood how to do both while doing what was necessary or asked of me from the coaches or with my field assignments.
So you brought up a good point there about being introduced to the business and the politics of ball. Most people don't understand that that begins at the college level. Most people think that college athletics is just an extension of high school athletics with bigger budgets, bigger stands, and prettier uniforms.
Yeah.
When did you really feel like, oh wow, this is a business, this is a game, and I'm really just a pawn within this entire business and not really an individual within it?
Who? Easy. My sophomore year, I think it was the second or third game of the year. I came into this season. I played as a true freshman. I was the only one on the team who played as a true freshman. I ended my freshman year on a real good note. I had big aspirations going into that sophomore year, but one of the biggest problems I had was I felt like I was a mega head case. I was a head case, and I was selfish as a player, and I didn't and I thought I was really just, too big for my britches, you could say.
Okay.
And when they pulled my starting position, it really crumbled me. It crumbled me because my whole system of operating, my belief system was built on whew, feathers, on
Your
glass,
identity
on
was based on being the best football player or being the starter. That's who
that I
you
was
were as a
needed and you
person.
couldn't do this without me. and
Mm.
and when they took my spot and I saw them playing someone else and them actually winning and doing good without me, it crumbled me on the inside, which was great. It was one of the best things that happened to me because then a lot of the ways that I'm already built, as far as like I'm extremely objective, and when things go bad, I don't immediately point fingers at someone else. I always point them at myself. So I'm looking at this whole situation happen in front of me. I'm not playing. I should be playing. I feel like I was the best one of the best people we had, but they still understood that I was also kind of cancerous. So because of that, they took me out, and I had to really change how I was as a person, and change how I was as a player. And then it helped me to see how I fit with the big picture. So I knew how to maximize and plan around that, because when you're dealing with the political side and you understand, okay, dude, my talent's only got me so far and they don't need me. Now you got to figure out ways to get on the field outside of being talented on the field. Like,
Yep.
hey, I know this coach is going to be the one that's going to be putting me on the field. Me and him need to have a great relationship, not sucking up to him, because then if I suck up to him, the other guys are going to see that I'm going to lose respect that way. But how do I form a relationship with this person with knowing I can't suck up and knowing that I have to have this relationship or else I'm not going to play? And
So
there's a fine
this is
line.
so intriguing to me. This is mind blowing to me how you were able to develop this emotional understanding of how to build a genuine relationship. You're not talking about building some bullshit relationship just to get what you want. You knew it had to be genuine and authentic, yet you come from a background that emotionally destroyed you. How were you able to learn that and figure that out? How did that happen?
Well, really being deep down, objectively curious. I am so, like, from the background of how my dad always taught me to look at the big picture and understand how I fit into the big picture. And, my mom telling me, everything isn't about you. You have to understand everyone else. They have other agendas that are just as important as yours. Um, and being able to not to also take the blame off everyone else and putting it on myself and actually giving myself the power to create change, that like helped because I needed to see what I was going through. I needed to be able to understand the system that's at place and what's the best way of going about it, and not being rigid, being very fluid in this understanding because it's very gray. And I kind of came into the environment with that base, it just got worked through with all these failures that I had and situations that I went through. I gained that experience over time.
That's amazing. So, because this journey is so intriguing to me, but so okay, your foundation of who you are and what you believe gets crumbled. You build it back up by learning how to build a genuine and authentic relationship within the coaching staff to earn your spot back, get back on the field. You have success. You go undrafted to the NFL. And if I'm missing any major points, don't hesitate to go back. I
Mm-hmm.
just like now you become an undrafted free agent in an even stinkier business, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you thought the college business was tough. Now you're in the NFL where it's straight up, you either produce and show me today at practice, or we're making cuts tomorrow and you're the next one out the door. Coach needs to see you with your playbook. So
Yeah.
like how did you transition from that to that? And how did you continue to grow and develop emotionally? And at what point did you start feeling like I got to be able to talk about or process what I've been through in my life?
Okay. So my transition into the NFL was actually a lot easier than most because I had dealt with the political side to such a high degree that when I went to the NFL and saw things how it wasn't a shock to me, and I knew what to do.
Yep.
Compared to a lot of the guys around me, even the guys who did get drafted, they're just now getting faced with this side of things because they were just so lucky. They're lucky enough to not have to deal with it.
To get
Um,
pushed through their entire time. They were the best player.
yeah.
They were the most talented. They didn't have
And they
to
had
earn it back
coaches
the way you
backing
did.
them. Yeah, they had coaches backing them. The whole system that they were playing was built on them, their success. Now they're another cog. And now they're like, what the heck? Trying to deal with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew that. Um, so it was very seamless for me. Um, even to the point where I knew how to, because I came in with the goal of I'm going to come in, I'm going to make this team, I'm going to not go, I'm not going to be a practice squad guy, I'm going to be on the roster. And each year I had different goals, and I kept setting the standard higher and higher and higher, uh, because being objectively curious, I was very curious to see what I was, especially coming from a situation where I was literally beat down and told constantly that I was nothing. So when I go into this in the NFL, I had the full goal of making sure that I'm something and showing everyone that I am something. And it was mentally taxing, emotionally taxing. Um,
Can you talk
but
about
it,
that a little bit? Like
yeah,
why?
we can talk about it because it that's when I first started to actually go to therapy.
Okay.
Because I realized in my second year that there was something going on, that this was something that playing football was not enough for me. Like I need to get this out. And I actually went to a Bible study. Um, I remember talking to Jason Wright, who's the president of the Redskins now, and he was just like, dude, you need to talk to Pastor Chad, who's Chad Johnson. He's pretty famous now. But
Yep.
he was doing our Bible studies on Wednesdays, and I told him everything that had happened to me. And for the first time, it was actually well received. And because I had told people a couple times before that, but it wasn't well received, so I would not say anything about it for years on end. And then it was received. He told me he pointed me in the direction of a therapist. Me and him talked like 2 or 3 times. Thought I was healed, was not healed.
This is the
But
way therapy is, right? Just when you think
it,
that you've like cured the problem, you uncover the next layer of the problem.
oh yeah, it's an onion now. And but I had gotten to the point where I was okay with sharing what happened to me, and it didn't have that power over me like it used to.
Right.
But during my career, it was something that I constantly had to keep in check. Um, and I had to be aware of it at all times, especially towards the end, because towards the end, it started becoming an issue that it had to be checked every day. Um, so that was one of the things that kind of led me to retirement too.
So interesting because you just kind of, I guess you just kind of swept it under the rug through your college or through high school, college, like through that entire time that you were dealing with these mental, the mental struggle that you were going through. You didn't even realize that it was something you should be dealing with. Is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say I completely swept it under the rug. I just did what was necessary to get me to the next step. And
Gotcha.
instead of just like fully taking care of the problem in the manner in which it needed to be handled,
Sure.
I I just dealt with whatever I could at the time, because you're also dealing with football, and every second that I can spend working on my craft, that's going to make me even better on the fields. And every second that I'm not working on my craft is going to put me behind, because
Yeah.
there's many people out there working on their craft. So you don't have all the time in the world to sit there and deal with all this stuff. Like, it's taking other time away from things you need to be working with. So
Yep.
I just did strictly what I could to get to the next step. And if it took,
That-
but never enough to just fully the problem.
Right. So then once you started to feel like you were really solidifying yourself in football and you knew what it took to compete at that level in the NFL, that's where you really uncovered like, uh-oh, the carrot for the next step is going away. What am I
Mm,
going to do now? And that's what sent you to
to
talking to
therapy.
Jason, to talking to
Yep.
Chad and getting to therapy. That's amazing.
Yeah, I
So would
had to do
you
it. Mm.
was that a life changing moment? Was it a life altering moment? Was it life saving moment? What was that moment like the first time you opened up in therapy and started to peel back the onion?
It was a life changing moment. Because up until that time, I had tried to talk to people about it, but a lot of people either weren't receptive, didn't know how to be receptive, couldn't relate, or a combination of the three. And as an athlete, it's already hard enough to find therapists who can relate to your experience. But then when you're dealing with all these abuses and then trying to find someone that's going to relate with that as well, it was non-existent until I talked to that. He was like a pastor slash therapist. And what he did that was really great for me was he listened. He really listened. He didn't sit there and listen and try and be like, this is what's going on with you. This is what's happening. Or this is how you should see it. He just listened. And that's what I was needing for so many years, is someone just to listen and listen, to understand, not to really point out stuff. Um, because then when I got through that and I got comfortable with telling people on the team what happened, the biggest thing that I came to was, wow, this, I'm not alone in this. This is something that most guys are dealing with, because if it's not, because most people come from either mental, physical, sexual abuse in that background. It's some type of abuse, poverty, single parent households. Um, it doesn't matter. They're all dealing with something. And once I got it out, I was able to form deeper bonds with people. So it was really
It
great.
it's something that I learned from coaching football and coaching people from different backgrounds was that especially for the kids that I coached coming out of the inner city, that authoritative figure, that image of a football coach that everybody likes to portray in the movies of that drill sergeant get in your face and get nasty, that was a real problem for a lot of kids who didn't grow up with an authoritative figure in the home or were afraid of authority or didn't have that understanding of how to live in a structured environment. So that was something that I learned, that like I had to make sure I tailored my communication style to fit whoever it was that I was coaching based on their background, where they came from, and what it meant. Did that make you a better football player when you uncovered that about yourself and how to communicate that to people and share that with people? Did that help you excel in football, or was it just another thing? What was it separate from your career?
It was not separate at all. I would say that was probably the single most uh biggest that was probably the biggest reason why I succeeded and had as long of a career as I had, because I really understood that about people. I really understood that if you're really trying to communicate with someone, you have to meet them at their level. You have to meet them at their level. And when it comes to just the style of communicating, some people straight up, you got to yell at them. Some people you got to yell at them. Some people you got to take them off to the side. Some people you got to maybe speak through them through someone else to them. And it's just what it is. It's just what it is. Some people grow up in households where everyone's loud, and so if you're not loud, they're not going to be able to hear you because that's what they're used to hearing. Is this
I
what it
think
is?
it's the
Yeah.
it's the biggest missing component to teaching leadership in the business world. I just happened to learn it because I had to communicate with everybody because I didn't really get to pick who played for me, right? Like as a special teams coordinator, unless you're in the NFL, you get the guys you get. Like head coach is going to tell you who you can play with and who you can't play with, and you got to get the most out of those guys any way you can. So I learned that in order to be able to do that, I had to be able to communicate to each one and tailor my style. But I think in the business world, people just assume that it's your job to tell people what they're supposed to do and expect them to do it, and that's it. They don't understand anything about meeting people where they are and trying to communicate with them in a language that they can hear, which could be the actual dialect, right? Like could be actually how you say what you say, not just the actual words that you use.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's how you say things is what's going to get the point across anyway. And you want results. Great results is going to make everybody happy. I don't care what business you're in. And yeah, you might say something and it might hurt someone's feelings. But if you're getting the results and that person understands that, hey, you're getting results, they're going to be more on board because and I have to be careful with how I'm phrasing this, because the thing is, just like, no one really wants to get yelled or screamed at.
Right.
No one really does. But even bigger than that, people want to produce great things. They want to create great things.
I think that's the thing that most leaders just assume, that people are willing to be mediocre, or people don't want to do the job. Most people want to do the job and actually want to be great at it, but actually have no idea what they're supposed to be doing or how they should be doing it in order to do that.
Or what's best, what method is best used for you to help you get the results you want. And,
Right.
I understood that sometimes you got to take me off to the side and just kind of just, tell me, but then sometimes you might have to stick foot in my ass and kind of
Yeah.
get me going because
Yep.
but at the end of the day, since I know where you're coming from, I'm going to respect you for it. you know, I'm going to respect you for it because, even like with my kid being a parent, it's the same way. I know with my 11-year-old, I can't talk to her how I talk to my 6-year-old, but,
Right.
and I
But you're
know
holding
for
everybody to the same standard. It's
yeah,
not, you're not making
same
concessions
standard,
to what's expected, but how you go about trying to get that result is different with each person.
100%. And we're all trying to work towards the same goal here of having a great family life. And,
Right.
I want to help you accomplish what you guys want to accomplish. But, hey, I'd rather talk to you this way. But I know at the end of the day, if I talk to you this way, it's going to get done. So, but getting them to be objective about it and get curious about it. And that's why I explain things to them too. Like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I
You're giving
yell.
them the
This is what,
why, and the why
yeah.
is so critical in everything that you try to explain. When I'm working with people and we're trying to build culture within an organization, I listen to a leader say, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it, and I'm like, you missed the most important part. They don't know why they're doing it. And if they don't know why they're doing it, they're never going to understand what they're doing. And if they don't understand what they're doing, they're never going to take ownership of it. And if they
Key
don't take
point,
ownership of it, they can't really excel at it.
dude. And such a big point you brought up because I can tell you firsthand from being a player, those were the worst coaches. They were the worst coaches, the worst situations to be in. We always lost, things always happened for the dumbest reasons. Um, that as far as like if you want to tune your team out, be that guy. Oh,
Yep.
this is how it's gonna happen, and this is the way it's gonna happen, or you can kick rocks. Great. Okay. We're best options here. 100%.
So I'm interested to actually to ask you this question, because with your background, as many coaches as you've played for, as many organizations as you've been with, and now that you yourself are coaching and mentoring and leading, what makes a good coach?
The ability to delegate, because the ability to delegate, because as a team, I look at it as you're an entity. And within that entity, just like the human body, there's jobs that needs to get done. And you as a coach, you can only do so much. You only have so much time. You only have a skill set that's built to do certain things well and other things not as good. So understanding who you are as a coach, you're not so good at this, but I know James is. So maybe James should do this, and being able to like pass it out, or even at the same time, I'm not good at what James is, but I'm making sure I'm spending time to get better at what James is good at. So when the time comes when I have to do it, and I'm not passing it out to James all the time. It's but finding that like balance of
Yep.
understanding that, and then understanding that when you hand out these responsibilities to other people, not only do you make the unit more cohesive together, but it empowers people. And then once you're empowering people, they're more willing to do stuff for you. And when it comes to that goal, since they know that they're actually a cog in the entity making it work, they're gonna fight more for it. Yeah, so that's why I say the ability to delegate first and foremost. And then, well, even with that too, the other thing is realizing what you're trash at. Dude, okay, man, I am a
Self-awareness.
phenomenal teacher. I'm a great teacher, great at it. Motivating people, not so great at it. Okay, so what can I do to really, because I know they need to be motivated too. What can I do to motivate them? Okay, I know, man, little JoJo in the front row, man, he gets everybody pumped. You know what? I'm gonna take JoJo off to the side and be like, dude, hey, we got a meeting today. Can you hype the guys up for me? Get them going, blah 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 blah. And then you get them going, and then by the whole time you're really analyzing JoJo to sit there and see, man, what is he doing? Like, what's the sauce of getting
Yep.
these people motivated? What gets them motivated? So then when that time comes, you built up your whole sauce container, and now you can do it. But
Yep.
it's not it's
It's not
it's really this
complicated.
it's a knowledge. It's not that complicated, but it's a fine line too.
Yep.
Which that experience really, that objective curiosity, which
Yep.
always is the base of things that comes into place with this. And I
When
guess
did you really
objectively
embrace
curious.
when did you take the term objective curiosity? When did you learn that term? And when did you start really recognizing that that was the thing for you that has made you successful? Like, when did that become a component of your foundation?
Probably since birth, because
But when did you recognize it? There's no way you were
well, I
calling it that at
recognize it
birth.
when I it's always been a part, but when I recognized it as being a strength and as being something that I wanted to live by and something that I wanted embodied was probably college when I first got in. And you're under your parents' roof, and you get to make however you want out in the real world. And being a military brat, everything was very strict growing up. So when
Right.
I got on my own, I was that guy. I rebelled. Like, I rebelled
Right.
hard. But I also understood that I do want to go to the league, so I can't full on go crazy, but there's a fine line with this. So, and I also wanted to be myself, because I could never be myself fully in the house growing up, because it was my parents' rules. And there's stuff that you got
Yeah.
to do, just being a
Yep.
kid. Not that they're bad parents, they're great parents.
Yep.
But when you get out on your own, you want to, I want to get tattoos, and I want to grow dreadlocks, and I want to stay up a little late. I want to do that. So I did it. Clearly. And but being objectively curious, I realized that in order for me to realize get the answers to all these questions that I knew my parents couldn't help me with, that no one could really help me out with. In order to be this person that I wanted to be in the real world, I needed to be objectively curious to not only who I was, but what's going on around me, to
Sure.
people, to situations, because there's more than one way of getting the job done.
Yep.
But in order for me to find these answers, I have to be objectively curious first and foremost. And I think that really set in, first year of college for sure.
Amazing. Well, with all that you're doing now, kind of give everybody a 30,000 foot view of what you're doing now, what your main focus is, and then where they can find you and get in touch with you.
Oh man, I feel like this answer is going to change next week because
I say so backtrack it then. Let me change the
so what
question.
I,
Let me
I'll
change the
just start
question.
now.
How are you making your passion your purpose?
Great. Okay, how I'm making my passion my purpose is, when I got done, I realized from seeing all these failures around me and not ever having a mentor, and understanding that these kids need a way of going through the system as well as everyone, just to be able to succeed as themselves, and understanding how to do that. So it took me about 3 years, 3.5 years, but of literally being in a cave for 3 years. I went into a literal cave for 3 years trying to figure out one problem. How could I be what I didn't have for other people? What A higher success rate. So I created this program as a means of doing that. And I also wrote a book to do the same thing, but the book's going to be out in a year, because this has to go through the editing and all that.
Yeah.
But the program itself, that's what it does. It helps you find out the three big things that you need to figure out while you're playing in order to have the fuel and be equipped with the proper tools and assets to be successful in that environment. But it also has that transition piece built into it too. So it helps you understand your bigger purpose, the purpose that you're going to constantly work towards. So when you're transitioning, you're always working towards something. So you're always filled with purpose. And being equipped with a fluid, strategic, tactical plan, um, built with resources to help you understand how to be resourceful, how to be adaptive, how to understand relationships, how to see the big picture and see how you fit in. And that's literally what I teach to people. That's what I teach to universities. That's what I teach to anyone who really needs a plan.
So if any of my former colleagues, any of my former coaches, or anybody that I know wants to get in touch with you, aside from asking me to get in touch with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
The best way of connecting with me, to be completely honest, is LinkedIn. I check that
Yeah.
regularly. It
Yeah.
is my favorite site just because of the fact that it is way less toxic than any of the other sites.
Yeah.
It is way easier to connect with people too through
Yep.
that too, instead of Twitter or Instagram. And I have an Instagram at rwalk56. They can reach out to me on there. You might catch me watching a funny meme, but I don't really do too much on there either. But everything I do is for the most part on LinkedIn. And they could also reach out to me through my email, rwalker5553 at icloud.com, rwalker5553 at icloud.com. And I always answer back, and I always give my personal email out because I'll answer back. And if I don't want to talk to you, I just won't talk back. Same thing with my phone number. I've been
For
changing since
sure.
high school. Like, if I don't want to talk to you, I just won't talk to you.
I love it. Well, Reggie, thank you so much for being on this show. Thank you for sharing your story through this conversation, being vulnerable, dropping major nuggets about objective curiosity and understanding structure and the power of having a plan, and peeling back the onion with us. So I can't tell you how appreciative I am. Wishing for all the success for you, and happy to have you in the tribe.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's been great.